Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint by Sing Shong. Chapter 251 Demon King Selection Part 5. We soon arrived at the Ujonghuk Industrial Complex, formerly Siswitz. Along the way, Ujonghuk spoke no words and acted similarly once arriving at the industrial complex. The moment the X-grade Ferrorigini turned off, Ujonghuk got off the car and told me, "From now on, I will act separately. Will you come for the selection?" Ujonghuk briefly nodded before moving his feet and disappearing from view. He seemed to know where he was going and what he was going to do. The one certain thing was that everything in his vision would be broken. "You aren't going to stop him?" I nodded at Jang Haeng's question. After all, I made a plan on the premise that Ujonghuk didn't listen to me. Ujonghuk just needed to live safely until the Demon King selection. The important thing was what I needed to do now. I ignored the minor procedures and headed straight to Eileen's council room. It has been a while. I hadn't met Eileen for some time and she looked haggard from the busy industrial complex. Eileen pushed up her glasses and submitted a report. Since the Duke left, I have been struggling with the other industrial complexes. The party members handle it well. Party members? Ujonghuk's party. You don't know it? Every morning, there are people walking around saying I am Ujonghuk. It was founded just before you left, you must not have seen it. Was it them? Damn. I sometimes thought I could still hear the shouts from that day. Eileen shook her head and continued. In recent days, a group of followers of the Punisher was created. Was her identity revealed? Not yet. She was suddenly gone soon after the Duke left. Gone? A strange feeling entered my heart. Perhaps? I had a thought, but it wasn't possible. It was impossible for such a thing to come true, no matter how I thought about it. Eileen let out a small sigh. I don't know why I keep reporting to you. The owner of this industrial complex is Ujonghuk. It doesn't matter. In any case, the Duke should now go to his industrial complex. This wasn't my industrial complex. Since I had returned to the demon world, I had to go check the current status of the Kim Dokja industrial complex, formerly Jillabat. I left it to Mark, but I didn't know what would have happened. I stared at the landscape of the industrial complex through the window. Many things had happened since coming here. I got up from my seat and Eileen rose with me. Duke Nim. I looked back and Eileen's expression was strange. It seemed cold, sad, and disappointed. Even so, her voice was calm when she opened her mouth. I had studied Eileen in ways of survival and knew whenever she made this voice. Eileen rummaged for a moment and then held out a small box. This is what you asked for before. The box contained a small watch. It was a small pocket watch designed with very fine circuits. I held it and felt a slight vibration from the watch. As I sensed the slow but surely moving time, many things passed through my mind. The story horizon, the revolutionary game. All the memories that had gone retreated to an out-of-reach place were ticking away. I stared at the watch for a while. I glanced at Eileen again and she was looking at me with both wrists overlapping each other. I seemed to know what would happen from now on. Duke Ujonghuk. It was emotion that crossed both wrists. This was a greeting from the home planet where Eileen lived, Lindbergh. Crossing two veins and conveying the vibrations to the other side. As if the second hand of the clock was moving, Eileen's pulse was conveyed to me. This industrial complex won't forget you. After leaving the Ujonghuk Industrial Complex, I headed straight to the Kim Dokja Industrial Complex. Originally, it should have taken a week, but the engine of the X-grade Ferrorigini meant it only took 2 hours. I sat in the passenger seat and looked at the scenery passing by while thinking about Eileen's words. There was Ondakibi, one from the sinister family with a lump and several constellations. It was a list of those who came to visit while I was away. The Dakibi was probably from the Bureau and the sinister family with a lump was probably a Weni person. I couldn't guess the constellations because they didn't leave their modifiers. Be careful, there are many strong people in the demon world watching you. There was no need to tell me. I just needed to look at the channel. Many constellations are paying attention to your actions. Your modifier is spreading among the constellations of the absolute evil system. The constellation demon-like Judge of Fire is watching you with anxious eyes. There were no 3 days until the Demon King selection. I looked to the back seat where Jang Haeung and the Breaking the Sky Master were hugging each other while sleeping. The Breaking the Sky Master and Jang Haeung must be tired. In particular, Jang Haeung was forced to operate the unidentified wall because of me. Still, their presence meant I could think of something to try. I glanced at the driver's seat and asked, "Department Head Han Myung-go." Han Myung-go glanced at me with a puzzled expression from where he was experimenting with the function of the X-grade pharyngeny. I didn't know if he was conscious of my gaze, but Han Myung-go cleared his throat. Life isn't easy? Honestly, the timing was strange. Han Myung-go saw my confusion and quickly added, "I felt it while living, life is supposed to be like this. There are times when nothing can be done and times when things don't work out." It was an obvious statement, but Han Myung-go's expression contained a certain amount of affection. Come to think of it, Han Myung-go had really experienced many things. In a sense, he might have had a harder time than me. I thought about it and suddenly wanted to ask Han Myung-go something. "Can I ask you something?" "Ask me anything." Perhaps the man who gave birth to a child in this world could make a reliable expression. I repeatedly turned the smartphone on and off as I thought about what to say. Han Myung-go seemed to accept my actions and opened his mouth. "Kung, it was painful." "What are you saying?" "I thought that's what you wanted to ask." It is a pain that's hard for any man or woman to endure. I was shocked once I understood what Han Myung-go was talking about. No, I didn't want to ask him about that. Still, I was curious. Where did it come from? I gave birth in my heart. Was it painful? Han Myung-go pulled out a cigarette and suddenly made a serious expression. At first, I was going to kill you. The bitter cigarette smoke flew out the window. It was shameful and humiliating. I was dumbfounded and wondered why I was in a situation like this. I tried the methods that appeared in dramas. For example, things like eating a lot of soy sauce. It wasn't easy to find because of the situation. There was no sense of reality as I heard this story from Han Myung-go. It would have been an unimaginable hardship for me. I was scared. What if I gave birth to a monster? What if my child ate me? One day, suddenly tearing out of my belly and killing me. I was alone for countless nights, ran away and avoided monsters while feeling worried. What should I do about this child? Should I kill it, let it live, give birth to it, or... I didn't use Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint, but the numerous scenarios where Han Myung-go ran away passed through my head. Han Myung-go spoke with an expression I had never seen before. Even so, do you know? Funnily, months passed as I thought about it. Then while struggling, I survived. Han Myung-go was able to survive the grandiose scenarios for one reason. I realized it at that time. Perhaps this child saved me. Thus, I decided. Whether I live or die, let's give birth to the child. He suddenly threw the cigarette out the window. Han Myung-go pulled out a new cigarette. In that short time, Han Myung-go looked distant before coming back. I knew Han Myung-go well. He was one of the people who would surely enter the list of 10 worst people I knew. Nevertheless, at this moment, Han Myung-go felt like a decent person. She was an infinitely beautiful baby. She wasn't human, but she was incredibly pretty. I've seen her. She was pretty, which was why Asmodeus used her as his incarnation body. I was just thinking this when the smile on Han Myung-go's face disappeared. The story didn't end well, but I could see what Han Myung-go wanted to say. After a while, Han Myung-go kept speaking. Thus, Dokja says I should try it. I should try giving birth? No, I'm worried about Dokja says I felt a momentary prick. My confused face reflected on the smartphone screen. I don't know what Dokja SSI is thinking. To be honest, I didn't like the original Dokja SSI. That's good to know. Yet I can feel that Dokja SSI is strange recently. I closed my mouth. I know that things don't work out well. Not everything will flow as you wish. Even so, don't dwell on it too much and let your heart lead you. It is Dokja SSI who survived whatever happened. If you don't do it right, you'll regret it later. Really, I had lived for a long time and see the world. I never expected there would come a day when I empathized with this guy. The LCD screen of the smartphone turned on and the file of ways of survival was shown. -3 ways to survive in a ruined world, second revision, .txt. I didn't have Han Myunggo's experiences. I never had a child, nor did I plan to have one. Nevertheless, I strangely knew a bit of Han Myunggo's feelings. To read or not read the second revision. This was the only thing occupying my thoughts for the last few hours. I was scared that I would be affected by reading the novel. It was painful to confirm the results of my work. I was afraid that my future might be fixed. However, it was laughable from the beginning. Han Myunggo's words. Yes, this story wasn't properly born yet. I opened the file of ways of survival without hesitation. Then I started reading as I always did. The second revision of Ways of Survival started from the 4th round. It was just like what happened at that time. In the 3rd round, teacher would have died there if it wasn't for him. Some statements relieved me. Nevertheless, I couldn't change it. Some of the descriptions still hadn't changed. That guy isn't in this round. I still wasn't present in Yoo Jong-hyuk's 4th regression. I failed the 3rd round. I didn't panic, because I had already expected it. I didn't know why the author sent me something like this. It might be to frighten me, or to use me for the ending that he wanted. I didn't even know if it was the writer who originally sent this. I slowly closed my eyes, took a deep breath and opened it. Then I thought at the 4th wall. Kim Dokja thought. It was as if I was writing a sentence in a novel. I don't know what he wants in the end. However, no matter the result, I will only make the ending that I want. I wrote the sentence and stared at the air for a while. Understandably, there was no return answer. Instead, it was the 4th wall that reacted. The 4th wall is wriggling happily. I suddenly looked out and saw the industrial complex in the distance. It was the first time I was visiting the Kim Dokja industrial complex. By the way, Han Myunggo suddenly reduced the speed. What happened? The scenario is progressing. Scenario? No way. The Demon King selection hadn't started yet? Do you want to enter the hidden scenario area? Han Myunggo cautiously approached the industrial complex. The entrance of the industrial complex was bare without a single guard. I opened the window and could hear words being shouted from inside the industrial complex. I'm Kim Dokja. No, I am. I'm Kim Dokja. Me. Han Myunggo and I glanced at each other at the same time. What is this? A system message followed. Hidden scenario, the Kim Dokja game is in progress. Something strange had happened in my industrial complex while I was away. Chapter 252. Demon King Selection. Part 6. You have entered the hidden scenario area. Would you like to participate in the hidden scenario, the Kim Dokja game? Han Myunggo stared at me and muttered in a dumbfounded manner. What is going on? I stared at Bayu. Bot. Bayu repeatedly shook her head. It wasn't Bayu who did this. Most hidden scenarios were activated according to the will of the star stream, just like the main scenario. Then why at this time? A subsequent system message gave a hint. The owner of the industrial complex is currently absent. An emergency promotion scenario is activated. It seemed that I had been away for too long. I think the star stream has determined that I have no intending of inheriting the Duke's position. Isn't it okay now that you're here? That would be good. The scenario remained unchanged after I entered the industrial complex. Maybe the Star Stream scenario was twisted by the impersonation act that Yu Jonghyuk and I committed. At the time, there was a message that an error occurred. What is the Kim Dokja game? It is a free participation scenario? Jang Haeung opened his eyes in the back seat and stretched. We are currently electing the real Kim Dokja of the industrial complex. At this rate, my name was going to be stolen. I turned towards Han Myung-go and asked, "Will you participate?" "Why would I do that?" "What about you, Jang Haeung?" "I don't want to be Kim Dokja." HI's expression quickly changed and he seemed to be sulking. I don't know the Demon King of Salvation. In order to avoid reality, he had decided to separate me from the Demon King of Salvation. The last one I looked at was the Breaking the Sky Master. Woof woof. I nodded. Then only I will join. Is it okay? You don't know what is going on. No matter what happens, I have to go. This is my industrial complex. Immediately after joining the scenario, a message window emerged. Plus. Hidden scenario, Kim Dokja proof of identity, category, main. Difficulty? Clear conditions. Prove to the constellations of the Kim Dokja Industrial Complex channel that you are Kim Dokja. Time limit, 3 hours. Reward, become the Duke of the Kim Dokja Industrial Complex and 200,000 coins. Failure? Asterisk all aspiring Kim Dokja in the scenario will have the same appearance until the scenario ends. Asterisk during the time limit, the aspiring Kim Dokja who receives the most points from the constellations will inherit the Kim Dokja Industrial Complex. Plus. It was the first time I had seen such a scenario. This scenario naturally wasn't in the original. A new aspiring Kim Dokja has entered. There are 3 hours left in the scenario. You must be acknowledged as Kim Dokja by most of the constellations. You are the 1131st aspiring Kim Dokja. The scenario started and I was summoned to the outskirts of the plaza in the Kim Dokja Industrial Complex. There was already a struggle to prove they were Kim Dokja. Haha, everyone. Do you want to be recognized by the constellations? Show us that you are the real Kim Dokja. I heard the voice of a Dakibi. While I was away, the Bureau had successfully advanced into the demon world. It would be a hindrance to the Weni people. In any case, they gathered like ghosts whenever there was a story. But Bayu became determined and started to expand the channel. Multiple constellations have entered the channel. I looked around slowly at the other aspiring Kim Dokja. I am Kim Dokja. Look. I'm Kim Dokja. The aspiring Kim Dokjas had mosaics on their faces as they shouted. Perhaps I looked like this to the other constellations. Damn, something felt strange. Most of the aspiring Kim Dokjas were just repeating my name and not showing any unusual gestures. They were those who were blinded by the Duke's position and participated. However, not all of them were the same. I am the Prophet Kim Dokja. I am the Demon King of Salvation. Some constellations are interested. Candidate 986 has gained 10 points. I stopped for a moment as I saw some candidates screaming Kim Dokja in a plausible costume. I am the king of a kingless world. A few constellations are interested in this candidate. Candidate 986 has gained 20 points. Wasn't he quite good? I entered the center of the industrial complex and more people started saying plausible things. Some Kim Dokjas could be seen dueling. I wanted to know why this area was so bloody when I heard a message from a familiar constellation. The constellation Prisoner of the Golden Headband is arguing that Kim Dokja is a brave person. I was wondering why the great sage the equal of heaven was so quiet. He was already in the middle of this situation. There was the sound of a blade cutting through the air and the aspiring Kim Dokja collapsed. Quackhack. A sharp magic power cut at the waist of another aspiring Kim Dokja. Some candidates fled and the winning Kim Dokja shouted. This is proof that I am Kim Dokja. A blade made of blue magic power was in his hand. I was honestly a bit surprised. A great number of constellations are interested in this candidate. Candidate 312 has gained 100 points. Candidate 312 wasn't using the white pure star energy, but it was similar in appearance. Candidate 312 glanced at me before starting to wipe out other candidates again. It was only a fleeting moment, but the moment I met his eyes, Eileen's words went through my head. Since the Duke left, I have been struggling with the other industrial complexes. The party members handle it well. I had a rough idea of how things turned out like this. Some of the aspiring Kim Dokjas here were from other industrial complexes. In other words, there were those who received sponsored information about me and posed as Kim Dokja. My mind was a bit complicated. If I was defeated in this game, the wrong Kim Dokja would enter the Demon King selection. A few constellations are interested in you. A few constellations are demanding that you prove you are Kim Dokja. How could I prove my identity? I had no resident registration or identification card to prove myself. The constellation Demon-like Judge of Fire says the true Kim Dokja loves comradeship. Uriel? I was about to shout at her when a candidate in the center of the square knelt down and started crying. Yu Jong-hyuk. Yu Jong-gyuk. Wake up. Please wake up. Kim Dokja screamed as he held the imaginary Yu Jong-hyuk in his arms. I couldn't help laughing. I didn't do such a thing. Uriel couldn't be fooled by such acting. The constellation Demon-like Judge of Fire is shedding tears. The constellation Demon-like Judge of Fire is begging you to show her again next time. Candidate 32 has gained 300 points. I couldn't believe it. I shook my head and passed Candidate 32, only to hear an unexpected statement. The constellation Abyssal Black Flame Dragon claims that the real Kim Dokja is a Chuyuni. Abyssal Black Flame Dragon? When did he come? The constellation Abyssal Black Flame Dragon claims that the real Kim Dokja surely knows the true middle school second-year syndrome. A true Chuyuni? I think I knew what happened. Surprisingly, at the same time, there was a candidate who started shouting. You sang SSI. Do you know? Kukuk. I am a reader. I have the life of a reader. My thoughts became incredibly complicated. It was a story before the scenario appeared. How did he know? No, wait, I never said it that way. The constellation Abyssal Black Flame Dragon is satisfied. The constellation Abyssal Black Flame Dragon has given candidate 97 300 points. I felt desolated and my lips were trembling. At this rate, I would lose my name to these ridiculous people. I should think calmly. In order to show that I was Kim Dokja, I needed to remind them of the events shared by only me and the constellations. Get your hand off me and get lost, you damn jerk. Candidate 32 has gained 200 points. Something only the constellations and I knew. I like to smile like this. Candidate 97 has gained 250 points. The constellations and I. My favorite thing is a Chinese dress and garter belt. Candidate 312 has gained 400 points. Damn, what the hell was happening? I organized my complicated thoughts and decided to use an easy method. I would directly inform them that I was Kim Dokja, thought the Demon King of Salvation's indirect message. During the course of the scenario, the constellation Demon King of Salvation can't speak. Son of a bitch. There is 1 hour left in the scenario. There wasn't much time left now. I quietly held unbroken faith in my hand. There was a limit to the number of aspiring Kim Dokjas. If I killed all the aspiring Kim Dokjas, the last candidate would become the true Kim Dokja. However, I didn't want to use this method. They were currently blinded by power, but most of them were citizens of my industrial complex. I sighed and shook my head as I gripped and released the hilt of my weapon repeatedly. These actions aren't like you. To my chagrin, Yu Jong-hyuk was right. Kim Dokja would never solve things this way. I thought about it. How do I prove my identity? No, what did it mean to prove I was me in the first place? At this time, there was a sudden change. This is electrification, the ultimate technique taught by the paradox Baekjeong. Candidate 312 was shouted while holding a lightning sword. I was about to point out it was paradox Baekjeong, not Baekjeong, when lightning struck from the sky. Yuak! The blue-white lightning hit the candidate's blade and tore his body apart. Some candidates screamed and retreated, while some constellations liked it and randomly gave points. At the crucible of the confusion, I looked up at the sky. Something small was falling from the sky. I thought it was time for him to come, but I didn't expect it to be this fast. The small dot that gave off huge pressure landed in the square of the industrial complex with a deafening roar. A blue-white light flooded the square. A small man stood in the center of the lightning and emitted a huge presence. Sparks flew as a voice was heard from the dust. "Where is my disciple?" After a while, the appearance of the voice's owner was revealed. Many constellations are astonished. The small man didn't care if the constellations were astonished or not. There were some constellations who realized the identity of the man. This small body, wait, don't tell me? They glanced at each other and then fell down in front of the man. Me. I am Kim Dokja. Teacher. Numerous Kim Dokjas fell down in front of the small man. I looked at them and clicked my tongue. It was good that they were quick-witted. However, it would be better if their bodies could move faster. Aok. Quack. The Kim Dokjas were attacked by the blue-white lightning and turned to ashes. I looked at the teacher kind enough to personally come to pick up his disciple and realized something. I see. In the first place, I wasn't something that could be proven. Your unique story will be played. The story returnee's disciple has begun. It was because I was made up of things that didn't only belong to me. Amidst the fleeing Kim Dokja, there was one person who knew the real Kim Dokja. Where is my real disciple? If I came forward, I would be ripped apart like the other fakes. Then I heard a familiar voice. Damn, what is this? Are they all Kim Dokjas? I looked back and saw Jang Haeung grumbling. I spoke to Jang Haeung. Jang Haeung. He looked over with surprise after hearing his name and flinched back with surprise. Kim Dokja? I nodded and asked, did you learn the breaking the sky swordsmanship? Of course I learned it. Why? I smiled and spread open my arms. Use it on me now. Chapter 253. Demon King Selection. Part 7. Kyrios had accepted 3 disciples so far. One was after his first transcendence and another was 50 years later. Then he didn't accept any disciples for a while. It was because all his previous disciples had died. One was to the successor of the Heavenly Demon School. The other was to the Blood Demon School. It was the events triggered by these 2 deaths that made the paradox Baekjeong Kyrios Rodgraim become famous. Enraged by his disciples' deaths, Kyrios struck the homes of the Heavenly Demon School and the Blood Demon School. It wasn't known exactly what happened in Murim at that time. One thing was for certain. Half of the 100,000 great mountain ranges became a bare mountain. The Blood Demon School withdrew its forces from the first Murim. 100 years later, Kyrios once again accepted a disciple. Kyrios asked the disciple whom he met after much trouble. What is this about? This poor disciple is greeting you. Kyrios looked at his disciple with a bitter expression. This was the last disciple he received with his heart. I asked you. Why is it like this? This disciple wasn't talented and didn't have any spots to like. The moment they met, he acted familiar and like they knew each other for a long time. He was friendly to the paradox Baekjeong. The paradox was so bizarre that Kyrios wanted to learn a bit about him. I'd been to the first Murim. Kyrios glared at his disciple, who was covered in blood. He was a person full of mischief on Peaceland. The reason Kyrios didn't punish him for the sin of stealing the technique and fleeing was because he saved Kyrgios' planet. Thus, Kyrios waited. Someday, his disciple would reflect on himself and show up again. Yet his disciple appeared like this. Kyrios' eyes narrowed as he spoke. There are traces of the breaking the sky swordsmanship from your wounds. Did you encounter the disciple of the breaking the sky sword saint? Or was it the breaking the sky sword saint? The disciple didn't answer. Kyrios' force became stronger. Answer me. The entire industrial complex wriggled like a trampled bug. The presence spread and all the Kim Dokjas in the industrial complex kneeled from the pain. It was just a wave of magic power, but it was like he showed off his status. This was the presence of the paradox Baekjeong. The only one who didn't kneel was his disciple. I didn't want you to see me like this. What does that mean? I have defiled the name of Baekjeong. Please kill me. Kyrios' eyebrows wriggled at the words. It was because he remembered the message he received before coming here. Please kill me. Kyrios' small teeth made a sound as they grinded together. It is true that I came to punish you. But his disciple was beaten up in a distant place. Moreover, it was a situation where his disciple told him to kill him because his disciple couldn't overcome the disgrace. In such a situation, what type of teacher could punish his student? There would certainly be such a teacher, but at the very least, Kyrios wasn't like that. Why are you so keen to be killed? Foolish guy. Kyrios turned his back to his disciple. He didn't know what happened to his prideful disciple, but he would find out if he went to Murim. Did you say it was the first Murim? His disciple didn't answer, but Kyrios was already moving. That world will know that there is a paradox above the breaking the sky. Kyrios left and the war clouds over the industrial complex disappeared like they had been washed away. In the places where Kyrios passed, the aspiring Kim Dokjas were lying down. Yua. I saw those who wanted to be me and felt very complicated. Jang Haeung asked, was it too much? It wasn't a question for the aspiring Kim Dokjas. I stared at the portal that Kyrios disappeared through and said, that's the only way to move him. Kyrios had already lost 2 disciples to Murim. In order to send him to the first Murim, I was forced to make a cowardly excuse. What if he kills the breaking the sky sword saint? Don't worry about it. I responded while placing a story fragment on the wounds caused by Jang Haeung. It seemed that Kyrios was going to get revenge for me, but it remained to be seen how things would turn out. A transcendent of Kyrios' level would notice the trouble occurring in the first Murim. You have triggered a new sub-scenario. Perhaps by now, Kyrios would have gained a sub-scenario to intervene in the first Murim. Kyrios was also unhappy with the outer gods. Once he found out the situation, he would be forced to help the breaking the sky sword saint. You should be more worried about us. What? Why? Originally, Kyrios shouldn't appear here. Despite the countless crises I had experienced, I didn't call Kyrios, thought Jang Haeung. I originally intended to call him during the Demon King selection. However, I used that card to save the breaking the sky sword saint. I didn't know if it was the wrong choice, but at least it was an honorable choice. I looked up at the night sky. The constellation demon-like Judge of Fire is watching you with anxious eyes. Some stars were worried about me. Some constellations are smiling at you. Some stars were taking my crisis as an opportunity. I smiled bitterly towards those stars. If you've seen enough, can you make a decision now? I took a deep breath and declared towards the sky. I'm the real Kim Dokja. The conversation with Kyrios was open to the public and no further proof was needed. The stars in the night sky shone at the same time. The constellation demon-like Judge of Fire admits that you are the real Kim Dokja. The constellation Prisoner of the Golden Headband admits that you are the real Kim Dokja. The constellation Queen of the Darkest Spring admits that you are the real Kim Dokja. A very small number of constellations disagree with the results. Those who wanted something else disagreed, but this was a majority vote. Many constellations recognize you as the real Kim Dokja. You have been recognized as the real Kim Dokja. The hidden scenario has been completed. 200,000 coins have been acquired as a scenario reward. The faces of the aspiring Kim Dokjas started to change one by one. The mosaic scattered and their real faces were exposed to the sky. For the first time, the citizens confirmed the true owner of the industrial complex and cried out with amazement. Kim Dokja. The real Kim Dokja. The master of this industrial complex is back. More messages popped up. You have formally inherited the former Jilabat industrial complex. The former Jilabat industrial complex has been officially declared as the Kim Dokja industrial complex. Your notoriety is spreading in the demon world. Your fame is strengthening your current stories. A bright light surrounded my body and my stories were further strengthened. You are the Duke of the industrial complex. Soon, a lonely fight would begin. After the situation settled down, the first place I headed to was Mark's office in the heart of the industrial complex. I'm ashamed. No, you did well. Riots occurred due to the Kim Dokja game and Mark and other officials were detained. I patted Mark on the shoulder and comforted him. You did your best. No one, including Mark, would have been able to stop the Kim Dokja game. In the first place, it was an event that occurred because I went away. It was thanks to Mark that the industrial complex was maintained to this extent. In fact, Mark was a mercenary leader on his home planet and possessed a very high-level crowd control skill. I listened to Mark's report on the surrounding trends. There is news of war coming from everywhere. A group of people exiting the industrial complex could be seen from the office window. Some of them were people who just participated in the scenario and others weren't. A war can't be done alone. Don't you know? It is foolish to hold on to those who have no will to fight. Most of them would die from the penalty of leaving the scenario area. Even so, they decided to move. It meant the situation was desperate. The population of the industrial complex is decreasing and the power of the factory is reduced. The story weapon, the factory was maintained through the work of the citizens. It was natural for the power to go down once the labor force shrank. However, I spoke like it wasn't a big deal. We can't see the outcome with just the power of the industrial complex. The main focus of the enemy isn't the industrial complex anyway. I had to deal with Meladin and Burkan. Meladin had joined hands with Vedas while Burkan was working with Papyrus. It shouldn't be a direct alliance with the nebulae based on the scale of the alliance. They had probably just contracted with some constellations of the nebulae. Nevertheless, it was a power that couldn't be ignored. It was still unknown, but in the Demon King selection, perhaps I would have to fight at least 10 constellations. Is there a plan? To be honest, the odds weren't very high. I had just become a constellation and it would be suicidal to fight them, even with Yu Jong-hyuk's help. I have a way. I couldn't say it now. There were too many eyes watching. Many constellations are admiring your ambition. The constellation Prisoner of the Golden Headband is wondering what that means. 2,000 coins have been sponsored. In fact, there were a few things that I had thought about. It would have been impossible before, but now it was possible. Before I could use these methods, there was something I had to check first. The fourth wall is wriggling. It read my mind and responded. I slowly blinked as I thought, I need your help. It would know what I wanted to say, without me needing to open my mouth. Let me see my attributes window. Until now, I have somehow fought without properly knowing my information. Until now. The fourth wall is shaking nervously. It would be difficult to do so from now on. It would be hard to know the enemy without knowing myself. I already knew a bit about the enemy, so I had to know about myself. Chapter 254. Demon King Selection. Part 8. The fourth wall is showing its teeth in a threatening manner. Fierce sparks filled the air. I quickly ordered Mark to leave the office. I wouldn't be able to figure out what was happening if he was present. Wait a minute, listen to me. I thought about what I could do to appease this damn wall. You love stories. Once this is over, I'll feed you many things that you want to eat. The fourth wall is looking at you with a frown. The growling pressure seemed to calm down a bit. It didn't seem to have any effect. I have something I need to check. I could die if I don't know it. Is that what you want? The fourth wall was silent. Fortunately, this guy didn't want me to die at the moment. The fourth wall was silent for a long time before speaking. The fourth wall says, Kim Dokja. Yes. It YLLB Dan G Rouse without me. I thought I knew what it was talking about. One of the fourth wall's functions included protecting me from the eyes of the constellations. Thus, it was worried about the constellations harming me once it was turned off. I know. However, this time I have to look. In front of my firm will, the fourth wall was silent for a moment before opening its mouth. 10 SE cons on LY. 10 seconds. Yes, it was a bit tight, but it was fine. All Chan Nels must be block edition. I nodded. Bayou. Play an ad on the channel. The moment the order was sent via the Dakibi communication, the screen turned off. Many constellations are confused by the sudden advertisement. Okay, this was enough. However, the fourth wall wasn't satisfied. The fourth wall says, not enough yet. Not enough? What? The fourth wall didn't answer. I looked up and Bayou was blinking innocently. Bot? Bayou was clearly blocking the channel properly. It wasn't enough yet. At this moment, the previous scenario came to mind. Hidden scenario, Kim Dokja proof of identity. In this industrial complex, there was a Dakibi carrying out the scenario. I stared out the window at the ruins of the scenario. The star stream created the hidden scenarios, but it was the Dakibis that guided the direction of the scenario. Many constellations are protesting the unstable channel conditions. In retrospect, Kim Dokja proof of identity was a rather unusual scenario. It was a scenario that precisely knew the demands of the constellations and even contained information about me before the first scenario. No matter how I thought about it, there was only one person who would do this. I sighed and slowly opened my mouth. Baihyung, won't you come out? Ajuma. Where are you? I came. A charitable medical relief station in Songnam. This shelter, established with the government's help, was one of the civilian relief organizations that cared for the casualties of the scenario invasions. Han Soo-young shouted while kicking a fallen patient in her way. Kim Dokja's mother. Kim Dokja's mother, raise your hand. The patient who had been lying down quickly moved away due to the kick. Yusenga hurriedly approached and took care of the patient. I'm sorry. Are you okay? Hey, Han Soo-young SSI. Han Soo-young was disgusted by Yusenga's sharp voice. Go away if you're going to nag me. You are too much. These people are patients. I'm a patient too. As the frowning Yusenga finally became angry, the door of the relief center opened and new patients appeared. They were incarnations wounded by the monsters present in this world. They were people the large wards couldn't handle and were forced to come to this relief station. Han Soo-young saw a familiar woman as she looked around. Lee Seolwa is also here. Righteous Lee Seolwa. She was a colleague of Yoo Jong-hyuk who was taking care of the patients here. Han Soo-young sighed deeply. It is a real mess. Do you know? She was originally destined to be a very bad woman. How do you know that? I just know. Why can't I know what Kim Dokja also knows? Yusenga's eyes narrowed when Han Soo-young mentioned Kim Dokja. Han Soo-young glanced at Yusenga and said, Kim Dokja has changed too many things. He saved those who were meant to die and killed those who were meant to live. Is this about the prophecy? You don't know it anyway. I just want to say that I would have never done what Kim Dokja did. Han Soo-young pulled out a piece of dark chocolate and ate it. The bitter taste of the chocolate spread in her mouth and the bitterness seemed to affect Han Soo-young. The future was ruined by him. The story should flow the way it was meant to. If it was me. If it was you, Kim Dokja, and you would be no different from a character. It wasn't Yusenga's voice. Han Soo-young smiled and turned towards the person. You look healthy, Soo-young. Kim Dokja's mother, Lee Suk-young, was behind them. It doesn't matter if I'm healthy or not. My Dokja seems to like unhealthy children. I don't care what Kim Dokja likes. Lee Suk-young laughed at Han Soo-young's reaction before turning her head. It has been a while, Usanga SSI. What's going on here? Before Usanga could reply, Han Soo-young interrupted again. Use good or bad luck, disaster, or happiness fortune. Good or bad luck, disaster, or happiness fortune. It was one of the stigmas Lee Suk-young received from her sponsor, Founder's mother. Good or bad luck, disaster, or happiness fortune, you always seem confident. Why are you suddenly trying to lean on something like this? I wish I could solve everything with confidence. You have lost your information. Is that right? Han Soo-young and Lee Suk-young were different from Kim Dokja. Han Soo-young only read the early parts of the original novel, while Lee Suk-young only knew the information she had heard from Kim Dokja. In the end, both of them had uncertain future information. Lee Suk-young smiled lightly and asked, "Why did you come to me?" Sangha can do something similar with Olympus power. Are you joking? Did you forget what Olympus did to Kim Dokja? The two of them bickered while Usanga muttered with an embarrassed expression. I'm sorry, I can't help you right now. Don't worry about it. I know the situation with Olympus is complicated. Isn't it in the midst of an internal feud right now? Yes. Usanga bowed her head with an unconvinced expression while Han Soo-young said, just leave it alone. They've had so much sex that their lifespan is being cut. Faster than. Usanga's eyes widened at the unexpected words. Lee Suk-young looked at them and laughed. Okay, young ladies. What information do you want to know? For reference, I can't see the concrete future with good or bad luck, disaster, or happiness fortune. I can only point the way. Han Soo-young nodded as if she already knew. I want to know about Kim Dokja's current situation. HRMM. Lee Suk-young looked at Han Soo-young with a subtle gaze, and Han Soo-young quickly added. It is because the Korean peninsula could be destroyed depending on how things are going over there. I am hearing strange stories from the constellations these days. Why are you laughing? You're just cute. Han Soo-young complained. Quickly do it. I've been looking at it for a long time. Yes? Then what is it? Lee Suk-young smiled. Well, it can be either. A week ago, it was in the middle, and 3 days ago, it was inauspicious. What? Inauspicious? Yesterday it was lucky, then what is it now? Lee Suk-young pulled out a bronze mirror without speaking. It was a fragment of the heavenly mirror, one of the 3 divine treasures. See for yourself. There was an unusual nuance in her voice that caused Han Soo-young and Usanga to simultaneously put their heads together. Then faint letters appeared on the bronze mirror. Great misfortune. For a moment, Han Soo-young doubted if she read the Hanja properly. Hanja equals Chinese characters. Is this real? I don't know. If you're curious, you can ask the Hongik Nebula. She said this, but Lee Suk-young didn't look very comfortable either. Then the surface of the mirror shook and the writing changed. Ah. The word help appeared? Usanga exclaimed, and the other two glanced at the mirror. Help. It was an obvious meaning, and there was no need to interpret it. Han Soo-young and Usanga faced each other at the same time. Lee Suk-young sighed lightly and asked them, then who will go? Kim Dokja is truly Kim Dokja. How did you know? Bai-hyung appeared out of thin air. His fur was shiny, and he was now wearing good quality cloth materials. The Dakibi used to only wear tiger underwear, but that was an old story now. What about the Korean Peninsula Channel? I was demoted. Can't you tell? It looks like you're not doing well without me. You'll know if you come back. Bai-hyung didn't use honorifics as before. Perhaps it was proof that the relationship between us had changed. In fact, my contract with him had ended with my death. Bai-hyung stared at me for a while, and I gazed back. Have you been well? It is as you can see. Yes, I've heard many stories about you. I lightly nodded. Do you want to come back to my channel again? I will treat you well. Perhaps Baihyung's words were sincere. It was a more dangerous proposal, because it was genuine. Well, I didn't hate Baihyung now. However, I wasn't naive enough to join hands with Baihyung. Baihyung was a dakibi with strings to the bureau, and the bureau was one of the most dangerous groups in the world. Indeed, you were originally such a person. Baihyung's expression was changing. It was natural for the dakibis to be aloof to those who left their channels. The idea that Baihyung could become an enemy wasn't impossible. Even so, the time had come sooner than I thought. Then what about this? Build a joint channel with me. It is fine since this is the demon world. For a moment, I thought I heard wrong. Are you serious? Think about it once. In fact, it wasn't a bad suggestion. If I built a joint channel with Bayu, it would allow Bayu to learn and grow quickly. I understand. More than that, now. At this moment, I heard Baihyung through the dakibi communication. Do you want me to turn the channel off? I nodded. As expected, Baihyung only pretended to be stupid. I don't know what you're trying to do, but I wish you well. I have a few things to do, so let's resolve the rest at a later time. I didn't understand why Baihyung was so favorable towards me. In any case, I was fortunate. Baihyung changed the settings, and then a message from the constellations was heard. All constellations in the channel are dissatisfied with the channel's connection. I immediately looked at the fourth wall. The fourth wall says, do not look for too lowing. The exclusive skill fourth wall has been released. I felt the curtain surrounding my world disappearing. I didn't miss this time and turned on the attributes window. Checking the attributes window. A vast amount of information entered my mind. Plus. Character information, name, Kim Dokja. Age, 28 years old. Constellation support, none. Modifier, Demon King of Salvation, narrative. Private attribute, Lamarck Kiran, legend, Demon World Duke, legend, scenario interpreter, apostle. Plus. I could now see my attributes that I couldn't confirm properly last time. To be honest, it was surprising. I thought my attribute would be reader. Scenario interpreter? Besides, what was apostle? Why wasn't the attribute rating shown? You have checked your attributes window for the first time. The effect of the scenario interpreter is activated. In any case, I kept checking the information. The part one watched most carefully was the exclusive skills. Plus. Exclusive skills, Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint LV, Bookmark LV, Character List LV, Fourth Wall LV, Reading Comprehension LV. Plus. One of the skills originally hidden with it could be seen. Reading comprehension. At first glance, it seemed like the ability to read and understand something, but I didn't think it was that simple. Most of the skills I've acquired so far were like that. I raised my hand to the attributes window without thinking. Then there was the sound of sparks appearing, and the attributes window started breaking apart. Was it already 10 seconds? I thought so at first, but the problem wasn't that simple. A faint ringing was heard in my ears, and my head suddenly throbbed. The finger touching the attributes window was numb and the world became dizzy. I felt like vomiting. Beyond the insurmountable wall, something was calling me. The exclusive skill fourth wall is strongly activated. The situation wasn't improved despite the fourth wall activating. The surrounding landscape started to mix together. It was a scene where things that shouldn't go together were merged. In the midst of this terrible mood, I felt a strange sense of unity. It felt like something I had been wanting for a long time. Then I heard a strange message. Your understanding of the character, Kim Dokja, has increased. What? The moment my consciousness flickered, someone spoke to me. So, you were told not to look for too long.